Hello everyone. This is the start of the Violet analysis video.
Woo woo,
I'm
Violet.
I'm here
Woo.
with Adam and Ben, and this is Emerson. And
Hello.
we wanted to just start out with a little bit of an intro before we get into the rest of the teams. And my question to Adam and Ben is, what do you think of this current meta DLC2? Also, specifically in our league, we're not doing Terra this season. So give me some first impressions, whoever wants to go first.
I'll just say I am so glad that we're not doing Terra. I think Terra's fine. I think the new, how the new, ever since what is it, Gen 6, they have like a new gimmick every season. There's like Mega, Z Crystals, Dynamax, now Terra. And it's just the gimmick, I don't love it. Megas were the best gimmick. That's my take. And I don't need it. And even though I feel like I maybe benefited more than other coaches from the Terra, I I don't know if I just had my pulse on it or what, but um yeah, it just was not that. It was cool, but not that fun for me. So I'm glad we're getting rid of Terra.
No, I'd have to agree with you, Adam, because I feel like Terra makes the meta really hard to wrap your mind around. Like even when we're working through tier lists, it's kind of like, okay, well here's a tier list, but how does this shift if somebody decides to draft this as a Terra captain? Um, I I think it just kind of makes it hard to get your head around the playing field. And I think this season too, we have a lot of, you know, coaches returning, new coaches, and I think it'll kind of help everybody get their feet wet in this new meta. And I also think that this new meta too, with like the new DLCs coming out, is even more so like offensively geared. Like the offensive power creep and speed creep right now are nutty.
Say
So
say
I'm
more
I'm
about that.
excited.
Say more about that because I'm like looking at our top tiers right now, and I feel like with the first DLC, most of these monsters like Chien Pao, Dragapult, Iron Valiant, Garchomp, Iron Bundle, these were mostly in the previous DLC. So like what can you say a little bit more about the power creeps that what you're noticing?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I noticed, and I'm trying to bring up the tier list as well to remind myself. Um, but one of the things that I was thinking about during the draft is, for instance, on my team, like I drafted Mew, which I mean, Adam, I feel like you've had a good amount of experience with Mew. I'm like that thing's like
Uh,
6 tiers down now, like
I
6, 7
know.
tiers. Like,
That
what do
is
you mean?
pretty
Like,
that is pretty crazy. Yeah, it's in tier 14. It used to be
like
like one of our like top 5 picks every season in like the top tier. That is pretty wild. You're right.
yeah, Manaphy's in here. Granted, we kind of like nerfed it a little bit, but Darkrai's now coming. Darkrai doesn't look insane anymore. Like,
Right. Right. That's oh my gosh, that's such a good point. Yeah. I think I always love the new Pokemon. I've just been really charmed this season by all the old Pokemon that are back in that I totally forgot about. Like oh, what's a good example? Like Keldeo. Like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh,
oh
I
yeah.
love Keldeo. How fun. I totally forgot about Keldeo. I'm so glad that it's back in. So, or like Clefable, or Skarmory. So excited that these Pokemon are back in. I just love these old Pokemon. It's starting to remind me a little more of Gen 7, which was my favorite. That's been my favorite time to play
Mm,
competitively. So I really like that. Um, and the other thing that I have been noticing about um, this new, even more so than in just like the previous DLC or standard Gen 9, is that all of the top Pokemon are kind of like weird. They're kind of like they don't like Darkrai is a great example. Like it doesn't really fit into a core that well, and it's like its own special thing, which is awesome, but it's like kind of hard to build around. Um, and I felt that like I had Sneasler last season, which I was really excited about. Felt like it
yeah.
was really hard to use, and I just feel similar. I just look at the top like 3 or 4 tiers, and I'm like, wow, it seems like a lot of these Pokemon are going to be hard to build around. So that's actually, as we get into some of these teams, that's going to be my comment on several of these teams is like, well, your team is great, but I kind of feel like you took one of these top mons that's really hard to build around, and I'm not sure that, I'm not sure how successful you were to support this mon, or this mon plays like too boxed in to mesh with your team, so it can't fulfill the role that it really should be able to, or it's I don't know. We'll see, but as we go through each individual team, but I do have a lot of comments about people's
I
top
think
tiers this
I think
time.
I know what you're saying of like this meta specifically feels very important to have a well-rounded team to be able to deal with all of these top threats. I mean that's a lot to deal with. So, and then also building around your own threats to be able to have switch-ins or pivots. It just all seems for some reason so much more calculated. Like you have to be calculated.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say kind of onto your point, Adam, where like you had a general approach when you were looking at these tiers and these coaches drafts. I really think bulky offense is like the way to go. Like in this meta, like I think bulky offense wins. And so as I was looking at these teams and like these tiers, I'm like, yes, you have, hyper offense might be good if like you can sustain it and you figure out how to support like these, high tiers that can be hard to build around. But I think a lot of times, especially in like a draft league setup, right, when you know what your coach is bringing, like roughly,
Hmm.
um, I really think the bulk is going to give you, that room for error that other coaches might not have.
Right. Did your experience using Iron Bundle last season have an impact on how you feel about bulky offense and
Hmm.
you know, because that one is not
Yeah,
that's not a very bulky mon. I'm
no,
looking at
it's
the
not.
top two tiers. It's like that and Darkrai are like not that bulky, and everything else like is pretty chunky.
So I think well actually Adam, you have a really good point there. I think a lot of the matches that I had where you're playing through like a match in your head and prep and you're like, wow, I just like Iron Bundle hits so hard, right? Like, and so
Mhm.
Iron Bundle, your goal is to just get in front of the opponent and click Hydro Pump or Freeze Dry, and it's going to be specs like 50% of the time. And if your opponent can outbulk that and like get off a few hits, then there were a lot of matchups where I was like, I just lose this because they outbulk me. Like that's why I drafted
Mm.
like the Dunsparce and Sinistcha. I was like, I'm just gonna take them. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it did influence my opinion a bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's totally right. I definitely agree. The amount of times last season I lost Sneasler on turn 1 to like a random Scarf like 3 times
Yeah.
last season. And I was
Yep.
every time I was like, it's not going to be this time, I swear. And then I would look at the matchup and I'd be like, I have to lead it. It's so good. And then I would die turn 1. It's like, my God, I can't believe I did that again. Like, so I totally feel that. Or that was a very frustrating experience.
Yeah. Let's move into talking about how you both um, like went through these teams to analyze them. Were there certain things that you're going to talk about? Is there a certain approach you had? And then we'll go right into the teams.
Sure. So yeah, just super quickly, I just tried to look at type synergy, look at those top tiers and see, is the top tier, is it supported? Is it over determined? That's kind of one thing. I don't think I specifically typed that out for every team, but like if your top tier is like needing to carry too much weight, that can be like a lot of pressure on your team, and it can make it very easy to, they say like, oh, if I just check the thing, I only have to check your one top tier, and then the rest of your team doesn't really work that well. So I can dedicate like 3 mons to checking your top tier, and then I'll be good. So I was kind of looking at that, and of course just super quick like hazard and removal and speed tiers, and then what I try to do is have one question for every coach. So whoever's team we're talking about, what's the question about, like how are you going to navigate this challenge? and then one piece of advice to people facing the team, like here's what I think you should do to face this team.
Great.
Yeah, and I kind of went a similar route as well. So, I definitely look through each team, and kind of my general approach to analyzing them is there were a good amount of drafts where, like first glance, I'm like, I don't really know how to play with this team, especially if it's like a different play style than mine. So I tried to play through matches in my head and kind of be like, okay, well, how's the offense look here? How's the defense? What's your hazard control look like? And then just give some general overall impressions of strengths and weaknesses to look out for, um, and just overall impressions.
Awesome.
It's a beautiful team. It really is.
It is
I
like
I kind
every
of love it.
color.
Yup.
I also noticed that about the colors. So yeah.
It's like healthy. It looks like it's part of a balanced breakfast.
Yup.
Yeah.
Keldios.
That's good. That's great, Ben.
That's actually amazing.
I wanted to draft Keldios so bad. I'm glad you got it because it looks great here too, but I drafted it because of Lando too. Or I would have drafted it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I think Emerson, just to start off, just want to share with everyone, I'm sure you saw, but Landerus we legalized sheer force, but it no longer gets agility. So that's kind of why, and plus with the power creep, that's why sheer force at Lando is no longer banned. I think this is the first season ever that it's been allowed in our league. I'm really excited to see what you can do with it, Emerson. I really love one thing that I like about this team a lot is that you have Meowscarada and Keldeo as faster threats than Landorus. So this is exactly what I mean by saying, like, is your top tier supported by your other mons? So like Landorus isn't pressure, like you can run modest Landorus on this team.
Mm-hmm.
And that is extremely, extremely valuable. You don't have to, of course you can run Jolly if you want, but like or whatever, timid. You can run timid if you want, but the fact that you don't have to run timid really, really opens up this team for me. So I think you did a really good job in supporting your top tier. I really like that you have like a high pointed mons in like a fire water grass court, and they all have pivot options, which is so nice. So nice. I think that again, notably, one thing you guys will learn about me, and I'm sure everyone is having this problem, is that it is just totally impossible for me to remember which mons have lost which moves. Like it still drives me crazy that the Rotoms lost Defog.
Mm.
And one that Ben, you pointed this out, is that Scissor lost Roost, which is like, whoa, like that totally changes how Scissor plays. So that's anyway. I thought that was kind of interesting to point out. So you have, you have a ton of great pivot options. The other thing that I really love about this team, I think Tentacruel is an amazing mon. It's so hard to draft because you always have like a steel type that's weak to ground and a fire type that's weak to ground, and you're like, my water, I just can't have my water type be weak to ground. And so you're typing your like defensive type synergy, especially with Rotom and Tentacruel and like Lando, is I'm just obsessed with. So I think that you really have a good opportunity to have Tentacruel shine, and I think you're going to want to bring it every week because of the rapid spin. Because you're going to want, based on the way that your team looks, I think you're going to want offensive Scizor more than sort of like a support Scizor. Excuse me.
Yeah, I
Oh,
would say
excuse me.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So and you're with the rest of your team layout, you are also I think you have much more special firepower than physical firepower. So I
Sure.
think Scizor will be a little more confined to the offensive, which means you're going to want Tentacruel every week. I do think that means that you may be hard pressed to bring your 4 low tiers, even though one thing I like about your low tiers is that I think they add a lot of value. I think Wish support with Landorus and Rotom and Scizor and Tentacruel. Actually, especially Scizor and Tentacruel, which support from Darkspun is really cool. And also the well-baked body ability works really well with Scizor. You should have like a lot of great synergy. So I think that's really great about this team. Yeah, Ben, do you have any? I didn't say any bad things. Let me say some bad things.
He's-
No, your speed tiers are good. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this team actually.
My
yeah, I mean,
experience in like doing a mock is that it's tough to switch into things. And so maybe that's where the wish support kind of comes in. So it feels very like everything on this team can hit hard, especially the top 5. And so really picking um, how to deal out that offense through the game without like having to sack something that I don't want to sack might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Emerson and Adam. I feel like you hit on most of the points I would have brought up, so I'm like pretty happy with everything that you said. I'm like the typing synergy is great. I love Landorus and Keldeo and Meowscarada. I feel like you could honestly lead a lot of those in a match. I feel like you could lead a lot of Mons in this draft. Honestly, the top like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 Mons you could start off, turn 1 and be fine with. Like, so I'd have trouble knowing how you're gonna lead off in a match. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, kind of what Adam was talking about. I think my main concern is the bulk. And Emerson, you kind of hit on this too. I'd maybe be careful staying in on your defense too long. I think positioning is going to be really key with this team, but also you have such heavy hitters and Landorus and Keldeo, Meowscarada. Also, I think you're going to be leaning on some bulkier sets with like Diancie and Scizor, either to, have Scizor stay alive as like a good slow pivot option, or to have Scizor and Diancie set up. Because I can tell you, they're both bulky enough to set up, and so I really think this team's gonna be a lot of fun to play with. But I would just be careful with the bulk.
One of the kind of colloquial things, I'm in a lot of draft leagues, and they just kind of say, "Draft league player clicks U-turn," and so I mean, I love having a whole bunch of pivots. I mean, literally the top 6 can all pivot, so that seems to be another direction of just trying to keep up, and trap things in a Volt Turn vortex.
Yeah. What's so interesting, so Emerson, my question to you is, excuse me, my question is, can Lando compete with the top threats? I think you really have a team to make it shine. It's kind of like we unlocked Lando Eye. Not really sure, previously it's been busted, not really sure will we really be able to see, can you get like the full value, the full, what was it, 17 or 18 points out of Landorus? So that's my
I don't think it's as powerful as the top threats, just kind of straight up. Like its speed tier is very middling in this very speedy meta. I think what I tried to do is just like all together draft a bunch of threats that just support each other. So it's not just like one Pokemon doing the shining role. So really trying to figure out, okay, which of my Pokemon can win. And I think that that's something I'm learning is just really trying to identify the win con and what conditions need to happen. So, if like a team doesn't have a lot of water resistances, then Keldeo can either be specs that week or, set up and just click the water move. So I think it's going to be about using the entire team. So
Absolutely. I think my advice to people who are facing this team on what you should do, so noting that the top at least 5 Mons. Does Tentacruel have teleport?
It has flip turn. It got flip turn.
Oh God, that's
What?
fucking
It got flip turn
wild.
and knockoff.
Oh my God. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, the top 6 Mons, we have U-turn, flip turn, U-turn, Volt Switch, flip turn. So truly, um, pivoting Maximus. So what to me, what that means if you're facing this team is you have to win the hazard war. You have to make it painful for Emerson to click U-turn or Volt Switch, otherwise you're just gonna lose. The other thing is you have to attack this team. There's a lot of amazing type synergy. So, use your neutrally hitting stab moves, get your slacking out there, and click body slam, And this team, especially if you have hazards up and it's switching all around, this team is going to, like Ben was saying, the defense is not as defensive as some of the other teams. And so if you're able to, keep getting that chip, like even having, if you have bulky mons that can, if you have bulky mons that can volt switch and U-turn, if you're just doing that back and forth, like that's a real asset to this team. But it's also possible that it is um, could it stand up to other bulky mons clicking U-turn and volt switch, against it? Like, would it be able to take that chip? Um, I don't know, but make sure to click attacking moves against this team. That's my advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd second that. Just don't let him pivot for free. Hazards, Rocky Helmet.
Ooh, yeah,
Rocky
Helmet's a
Helmet.
bit rough for this
Yeah, I'm
team.
like Rocky Helmet looks real
I
good against
honestly
this team.
forgot that Lando got U-turn until I was prepping my match this week. So, yeah,
Too strong.
yeah, strong.
Great. Well, you have a fantastic team, Emerson.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. It feels like a me team with the
It
pivots and
does.
everything actually has utility and also can hit hard. So,
Great.
all
Yeah, I'm
right.
excited to see Bayonet come with Frisk for item scouting too.
Honestly, I'm kind of excited about Bennett. Like, it got Poltergeist. I think it's
fun.
just gonna be kind of a silly thing.
Yeah.
When you got the
So
classic prankster Destiny Bond.
it doesn't get Prankster. Only the Mega
What?
version gets
No.
Prankster.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. I don't like it.
So
We're gonna
Okay.
it's like this very shitty, like 65 base speed, but it can click Shadow Sneak and it can click Poltergeist. So
Yeah, so Ian's team might be my favorite team Ian has drafted. I love this team through and through. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I think Ian's going to have a ton of fun exploring it. So I kind of want to start off with the first 4 Mons look amazing together. Like I know I kind of started off talking about how much I think bulky offense is amazing in this meta, and this is maybe the bulkiest. It's up there. You could hard switch half the match and not care. Like that's how good I think a lot of this offense is. Latios in particular got some amazing buffs. Okay, it's not a buff, but Soldu is still a thing, which I still think is an awesome item and will boost the dragon and psychic moves. But Luster Purge got a buff. It still has great recovery options, typing sets. Um, I could honestly see Latios getting bumped up at the end of this season. Some other moves, which I can't remember if it's new. If somebody can remind me, there's a move called Psychic Noise that I think is going to be super awesome for Latios. But
What
you
does
can
it
run
do?
that. So I think it's around like 70-75 base power. But what Psychic Noise does is it stops the user from healing for 2 turns, which is insane offensive
That,
pressure.
that's
What?
wild.
And I'm not
And
sure. I'll
doesn't
have
it?
to check. I don't know if it works against Regenerator too. So imagine you have like a Regenerator core.
My
Um,
gosh. I think it
but
does stop leftovers recovery, right?
it does. Yeah.
does it do Regenerator too? Because I almost
I
like that's
don't
almost
know
worth
about
running
that
Psychic
interaction.
Noise.
Yeah. Um,
You keep talking, I'll look it up.
So Latios is terrifying. Latios is terrifying against this team. So I mean, you switch in a dark type to try and deal with a Latios, and you still have a Tyranitar and an Amorous to deal with, and you. I feel like Ian could switch into either of those, just hard switch, and be relatively fine. Um, I feel like Excadrill also works really well and has great hazard removal and setup sweep is a great setup sweeper. I really like the rapid spin mons that are both hazard control, but then they've set up and could sweep your team. Um, I think Tyranitar looks great. It'll be awesome for eating those ghost and dark type moves that Latios hates. And Sandstorm chip is huge for I don't think you'd want to bring Sash against this team. Um, kind of looking at some of the other ones again. I think those are the four that Ian's probably bringing each week, but then the others like Decidueye through Torracat, I feel like you have to worry about all of them. Actually, no, I think Alomomola is probably coming every week too, because like I feel
agreed.
like it's such a great wish passer, and it's just going to enhance the bulk of those top four mons that are coming, right?
Mhm.
Some other notes, I'm like Raging Bull is just amazing. I feel like that thing already has it's already choice locked, but it's not choice locked.
Wait, which one?
Um, Raging, oh sorry, Tauros. Why did I say Raging Bull?
I don't know, but I was going with it.
It seemed right. I was locked in.
I was like, what? Wait.
Really? Why did I say it? Does it have a move called Raging Bull? And that's why I said
It
it?
has Raging Bull. I thought you said Raging Bolt.
No. Oh, Raging Bull. So it's a base 90 move
Right.
that changes type. So base 90 fire move that destroys screens. So
That's cool.
that's amazing. I feel like Ian really wants to set up on somebody with Venomoth. So I think that's gonna happen. I don't know. Electrode's fun. Torracat's fun, and I think he'll do well at least a week or two. Um, so let's see. Solid removal options for hazards with Decidueye and Excadrill. I think the draft's solid, and you can bring, I think it's in the air. You could bring them on almost any week, like kind of mix up teams, and I think it's gonna be hard to predict. Uh, I'm like, is that it? I think that might be it, but that's I think it's an amazing draft, honestly. Like this is one of my favorites. So I know it's kind of all over the place, but that's honestly where this team the offense is everywhere, the defense is everywhere. It's going to be a mess to prep for. um, I'm curious what all thoughts you have on Ian's team.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you're right. They drafted like such an incredible team. For me, I what was I thinking? I mean, yeah, similarly, I picked out like how just like defensively, I called it beautiful.
Mm.
It's like the meshing of like Latios and Tyranitar and Excadrill and Amorous is so beautiful. I think it's great. I said I was a little iffy on the speed tiers, but I feel like Sand makes up for it. Obviously you have Hisui and Electrode at the top, but it's just not, I don't know, it wasn't doing a whole lot for me. So I appreciated the consistency in the lower, between base 90 and base 60 speed tiers, which is not something that every team has, and I think that's pretty important. Actually, I think that's an underrated uh, part of speed tiers. But um, yeah, obviously good removal and good hazards. Um, I do think this draft is interesting in that like you have the top four like so clearly. I mean, I guess it's just a little top heavy. It's a little more top heavy than the average draft, I think. 'Cause you have the top four, which are amazing, and then the bottom six. I guess Alola you're right, Ben. Alola fits with the top four really well, and the other five, it feels a little bit random to me. Like I think they'll be good, and I think they'll have their place, but it feels like two separate teams a little bit, and I'm not
Yeah.
fully sure how it all fits together. But I do think that the top tiers are so strong, and that the bottom tiers like all fill different roles, that it'll probably be fine. I do, but I do think Ian will struggle to bring more than one of the non-Alomola, Alomomola low tiers in a week,
Yeah.
which is fine, but maybe be careful about either pick a match for all your bench warmers that you're gonna, against someone that you
Yeah.
think you can beat, or or you're like, oh, I can't win this, so let's just bring all my bench warmers this week or something like that. So that could be, worth thinking about. I do think so. My question for you, Ian, is if you look at the top four, okay, defensively perfect. Also, dot dot dot. What are you gonna do about? There's a lot of top tiers that have random fighting coverage, like Chien Pao, like, or random ice coverage, like Darkrai. Look, if you have someone with like fighting and ice coverage, suddenly this team, you're like, okay, like Chien Pao is great. So it's just like, okay, so I can just click Icicle Crash against Latios, and Sacred Sword against Excadrill T-Tar, and Icicle Crash against Enamorus, and Icicle Crash against Decidueye. And like, okay, great, like, so there's a little bit of that for me where it's like, it's not like on paper it looks great, but I think there are some very specific mons that you're gonna have, that you're gonna be like, wait, fuck, I have a horrible matchup against this one specific Pokemon. And I think there might be more of those specific Pokemon than you think there are. So that's my question for you, Ian. And then my advice for how to beat this team is, I think you have to really make a plan on, like, I think when someone has a defensive core that's this strong, or like a bulky core that's this bulky, you really
Yeah.
have to make a plan of like, I have to break through one Pokemon. Like, we're just going to be switching
Yeah.
around. Ian's going to be hard switching for days. I have to break something first. Like, and I think you should come up with an extremely specific plan of like, I'm going to have this mon in front of this mon, and then they're going to switch out to this thing, and I'm going to click this move, and then I'm going to have to do that 3 times, and then
Yeah.
it'll be dead. You're going to have to be really specific about that. So, and then in conjunction with that, I think you really need to watch out for wish support from Alomomola. I think just last season, Nick had Alomomola and T-Tar,
It was
and just
ridiculous.
like, it was insane. It was crazy. We almost had T-Tar MVP number 2,
Yeah.
like, for the second time. So anyway, just that is very threatening. So be very careful about that. Be thinking about like, okay, if I bring out this mon, then Ian will bring out Loma Mola, and then I'm going to hard switch when they click Wish, and then they're going to switch into Tyranitar. So am I going to have a move to click to hit Tyranitar so that the Wish doesn't, be really thinking about those.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think you make a really good point there, Adam. I think it's gonna be hard to, like, you cannot be passive against this team at all. If you let, and I think this is a good refresher for like returning coaches and like newer coaches. But like, if you let any of those top four start setting up on you, it's like game over. Like a lot, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you just sit in front of Latios and like, I wonder what this move does, and like you didn't run it in the calculator and you're like, oh shoot, that did 15% damage and it has leftover, so it doesn't care. And then you just lose. Um, so you're it's I think this is one of those teams where you are like, oh crap, this mon in front of Latios doesn't break sub. So I have to put this extra coverage move on it with these many attack EVs so it does 25% damage. Like that kind of stuff. Like you
Yeah.
can't let them set up.
Yeah. Oh God, that's such a good point. And also just call out for snipe of the draft, Ian. I think there were like 8 people, myself included, who really wanted Latios, and you got it. So, cheers to you. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Emerson?
I think this is a super strong team. I'm looking at a little Momola and thinking about Nick having it last season and how truly annoying it was. But I do think that, you can potentially take advantage of it. But it getting flip turn is just obnoxious. Um, so I think this is an extremely offensive team, and I think Ian did a great job of supporting all of their threats. So I'm really excited to see what sets they bring throughout the season. Um, Looks great.
Go in.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right. We are going to move on to Sean's team. Um, will one of you take it away?
Sure. So yeah, you have such an interesting team, Sean. I think this is the one of the teams that I have the hardest time uh, you know, wrapping my head around. I think, and I think I was talking about this in the intro a little bit, but sometimes when you have these like the top tier mons that are just like don't really fit neatly into like a type synergy, and I think so. Sean drafted Darkrai, so I think that that kind of is can be very difficult to support somehow because you almost want if you kind of mesh it in with the rest of your team too smoothly, then it can kind of be stuck in a particular role, which maybe it doesn't want to be. Um, and and so anyway, I think that that is a really challenging thing to do. And so that's kind of mostly what I'm looking at when I'm looking at your team, Sean, is like how well does it support Darkrai? Does Darkrai um, is it helping? Is it not helping? I mean, I do love your great kind of fun Firewater Grass core with Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Cinderace, and Amoonguss. Um, I love the kind of sleep option where you have Spore, Amoonguss, and then you can, get a free, basically switch it into Darkrai, get the bad dreams off. I would love to see like a wide lens hypnosis set on Darkrai. That would be so fun. Um, yeah, and I think you do actually have some really cool physical offense, also with Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Cinderace, and then Chinchino is insanely good, and I think it fills a really big role on this team. With that kind of just like fast speed tier. It's faster than Urshifu Rapid Strike, and it has a little more than Cinderace when it comes to. I mean, its like attack stat isn't quite as high, but with a combination of Technician and now loaded dice, you can really get these like strong tail slaps, strong bullet seeds, rock blasts off. So I think that is really cool on this team. I do wonder, Chinchino is low enough down. I kind of wonder, like, are you going to struggle to bring your lower tiers because Chinchino is filling up too much of an important role on this team that it's going to be hard to leave that at home? I don't really know. Like, I kind of wish Chinchino were dark or were a dragon type, in a way. So anyway, just kind of musing there a little bit. Um, from a hazard setting standpoint, you obviously have Deoxys Defense, which is really incredible hazard setter, and you have Cinderace as your removal option. I do unless Chinchino doesn't get tidy up, does it? That would be
It sure
insane.
does.
It does. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Okay, well,
Like,
that's pretty cool. Uh, that's extremely cool
yeah, I
for
didn't know
Chinchino.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the removal option other than Cinderace court change.
wow. Well, okay.
Wow.
Well, doubly watch out now that Chinchino has a way to boost its basically Dragon Dance.
Yeah.
That's gonna be.
Wow.
I
It
feel like
really
that's almost like
is.
your strongest attacker.
I'm, I'm like, did we miss tier? like, like I forgot I got tidy up.
Oh my
Oops.
god. Um, So yeah, so I mean it's fun. It's super fun. I do wonder a little bit. I mean, you have this team like is going to be so important with momentum with your Cinderace, Libero U turns and your Urshifu U turns and your Chinchino U turns. I do wonder if Deoxys Defense and Amoonguss are going to feel just a little bit too passive on this team. And I feel like this team, if you let the opponent like set up a Dragon Dance first, like if you have like a Haxorus against this team and they get up one Dragon Dance, like all of a sudden things like Cinderace and Urshifu that maybe could live one hit before aren't anymore. Um, so I kind of wonder, I feel like it would be easy to lean into just like, oh, just switch back and forth between, teleport out with Deoxys Defense, and switch it into Amoonguss and get the Regenerator and then switch back and then teleport out. Like, I feel like it would be easy to just let the opponent set up on you first. And I think that would be a mistake. Um, so yeah, I guess my question for you is, yeah, will you be able to keep pivoting and pressuring enough with your team in order to prevent the other team from setting up first? Yeah, and then my advice to people facing this team is, yeah, set up basically. And also, I think running taunt against this team, especially on your offensive mons, I know sometimes it can feel like a risk if you have a something that's going to die in 1 or 2 hits to, risk clicking taunt when you could just be attacked. But I think this is the team to run taunt and encore against. So I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts on the team. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I kind of had a lot of similar thoughts. I'll kind of run through them a little bit. I think this team does have a good, strong offense and good ways of pivoting between defense and offense that I really like. I kind of miss the days, when teleport was more common. So having a core member of your defense that is one so bulky, but then is so perfect for bringing in your offense, I think is great. And then I mean, you have a Moongus that can't really, switch out the same way, but a Moongus is amazing in its own right, with constantly threatening between, status moves and Spore and putting the opponent to sleep and all that. Um, I think that'll be good. Darkrai, I think Darkrai I think would be good with both Specs and Expert build. I don't know
Mm,
that I super love Life Orb, but I'm not like as big a Life Orb fan as some other people. It's more just I could see like the hazard removal options on this team are better than I thought. I mean, you have Court Change and then you have Tidy Up and Chinchino, but there's still going to be plenty of moments when you have Cinderace or Chinchino on the field and you don't want to click those moves necessarily. Um, and so that would mean that you might feel pressure to put boots on some of your offense, which I don't know that you want to do. Uh, like for instance, I wouldn't want to have to put boots on Darkrai. So I think that was a concern of mine. Trying to think if I had some other things. Yeah, I still think I feel like this draft is still kind of middling against hazards. I still think you can bring hazards against this team. It's just if you use hazards against this team, you need to keep the pressure up so they don't want to click Court Change or they don't want to click Tidy Up. Um, let's see if I have anything
One
else.
interesting thing about Court Change is that it kind of it also swaps screens. So I do wonder, like, is Deoxys Defense going to be putting up screens, and then Sean, you're going to be like, oh, I want to click Court Change, but I don't want to give the opponent screens. Like, I'm kind of stuck. Or same thing with Tidy Up, I think, which takes screens off the board too. So I wonder if there's a little clash there.
Yeah, I could see there potentially being a clash there. Again, I think the biggest point, and Adam, you hit on this more, is I'm like, Sean, I think you're gonna want to bring all your low tiers like 1 week. Because I don't see a single week where you want to bring one of the low tiers over Chinchino. They're not bad. And I was like looking and because I was looking at the point values too, and I was like, I think you made solid picks for the points you had left. It's just that's what was on the field, and like it's not completely bad. Maybe like 1 week like Lebs would work, or 1 week you really need a fairy type on your team. But Chinchino's offensive pressure is pretty cool. And one other note I made about this team is be really careful. Like you can't super run a lot of protect or subsets against this team, especially with like Chinchino constantly threatening, multi-hit moves, and with Urshifu being able to break through protects and stuff like that. So I kind of like that aspect of this team's offense.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, what about you, Emerson?
I wish that Amoonguss got T-Spikes because I think that that would
Oh,
really help this team a lot. Even though I think, a lot of our coaches in this league are pretty smart about drafting a grounded poison. But I'm just thinking of ways, Sean, that you can just chip the team down, your opponent, I mean. So maybe just thinking about that, and then also, like Adam said, being careful of your own team getting chipped down. Deoxys defense can only switch in so much. It does have recover, which helps. But yeah, I think too having a lack of a ground type hurts this team a bit. But you have a lot of resistances to electric, I guess. But a lot, I mean two. So, yeah, just be careful with some volt switches around. But I do think that Sean can unlock the Darkrai Urshifu Cinderace. That feels like a really good offensive core. And again, Chinchino, like forgetting about our little buddy there. So
yeah, that's a good point. I don't think there's any reason why someone, if you have an electric type, you shouldn't just put Scarf on it and click Volt Switch.
right.
Run Modest Scarf and just click Volt Switch constantly against this team.
I do
Yeah.
think Chinchino with the fast encore is going to be really nice for Sean. I would suggest bringing that more often than not to stop these setup sweepers or lock something into clicking roost. I think that you can get momentum. Like if you click encore, they have to switch out. Bring in your Darkrai, click a Specs Dark Pulse. Like that's your key right there. So
Mm. Great. Well, yeah, we're excited to see what you do with this, Sean.
Yeah, so let's hop into the Lisbon Lechonk. So Chris drafted an amazing team, and I was kind of telling Adam and Emerson my first note was wowza when I was looking at the the top ones here. So like Iron Bundle, I know I'm biased and that I drafted it last season, but I still think it's one of my favorite cannons ever. Like freeze dry, hydro pump, ice beam. You can bring those every week and hit everything in the game hard. Um, so that's a great pick. Annihilate was already MVP for a reason, and I think it's going to do really well on this team. Think what else? Sorry if you can hear my dogs freaking out.
it's okay. They're
Yeah,
excited
they're
about
having
Pokemon too.
they're excited about Pokemon. Um, let's see. Iron Treads can hit nearly everything in the game hard too, as well as provide like terrifying hazard control and really good speed setup. Or yeah, speed setup. And then I really like the low tiers here too. Like Pincurchin, I feel like works really well for utilizing Cork Drive on Iron Bundle and Iron Treads, and then you have to deal with all these oppressive offensive threats, uh, while also dealing with Zoroark Illusion. Uh, and one of the things too that I didn't realize until late in the looking in this team is imagine like Zoroark Illusion and you don't realize you're actually hitting Annihilate, and then say like Sean with Chinchino uses Skill Link Rock Blast or something, and then like
Oh shit.
pro-
Oh my
procs ton of
god.
Rage Fist boosts on Annihilate. So I'm like, that's the kind of shenanigans you're gonna have to deal with against this team. But I think
Wow.
that's what makes Chris's team so awesome. And part of why I'm so excited to see them play with it more. I also really like Screamtail on this team. I think it kind of, helps support. I think it'll be great as a Wish Passer, to be honest, because I think this team's bulky enough, like especially in Annihilate and Iron Treads, that I feel like just don't want to die sometimes. That having a solid Wish Passer is good. Let's see. Do I have any other notes? Just so many pivot options. I feel like most mons on here can pivot, and so I think it'll be pretty easy to move in and like pivot your offense and defense. And yeah, I think those are my notes on it. This to me was one of the best drafts. Like I'm really excited to see Chris do more with it.
Yeah, I think this team is just incredible. Yeah, I was saying my I'm looking forward to our Zoroark H emoji after the season. It'll be really
It's gonna be
fun.
a sweet emoji too.
So yeah, that's gonna be so good. So I feel like that's kind of how I feel about this team. Is like, oh my gosh. And we already know Chris can use. We already know they can use Zoroark super well. Again, I'll just emphasize the Pincurchin and the electric terrain part of this team for Iron Treads and Iron Bundle. Guys,
Hmm.
electric terrain, Iron Bundle. This is insane. This is insane. Why did we let this happen?
Well,
Uh, so, so that's gonna be wild. Can you imagine specs plus speed boosted Iron Bundle and
eh,
electric? I mean, just like, okay, this is
there's your
crazy.
cannon, buddy.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. So, I think that's insane. I really love Flygon on this team too. I believe it still gets defog, though I guess
No.
I'd have to. Oh, it doesn't?
No defog, but
Oh,
it did get rocks, so my little
okay. That's
dragon boy
something.
got some
Um,
rocks.
I absolutely cannot remember who gets what anymore. It's insane. It's very hard for me to keep track of.
Sure.
But I love, just a classic, Dragon Dance, Earthquake, Outrage, Roost kind of thing. It's really or U-turn even. Or, it's a great Scarfer.
Yeah.
So I think Flygon feels like a really nice niche on this team. Oh yeah, also Vikavolt web support for Annihilate is extremely scary. Yeah, that's really scary. What else? I would say, yeah, I don't really have a lot of questions for this team except for like, is Pikachu kind of a gimmick? Are you gonna want to bring it? Maybe. And that could be, I'd be interested to see that, or if it's just, throwaway mon 1 week that you feel confident in your
I
matchup.
wonder if it gets rising voltage uh, with the electric
Mm,
terrain. I think it might. Even
it
if it
could.
doesn't, like the, what's it called? Pikachu ball? No, that's not what it is. There's like something electro
10,000 volt.
electro ball. I don't know what the signature move is, but
I feel
it's
like
like
Pikachu has 10 signature moves.
it's a
Like his
physical move. Volt tackle. That's what it is.
I
And it's
should
a
remember
recoil
that.
move, but it actually hits really hard.
I guess Pikachu does
Wow.
have that item too, the light ball.
That's what it
Um,
is.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
so anyway, I
Wow.
guess we're probably gonna get stomped by Chris with that too. Um, Fun. I would say, one thing I would love to see you bring, Chris, is Screamtail. I would love to see Iron Ball Screamtail, and you can run Wish teleport with Iron Ball to like get your slow teleports
Mm,
off into Annihilate and Iron Treads, which really both love the Wish support. And then you could also run Trick, so you could, do that a few times and then trick the Iron Ball away. I think that would be a really cool set. Um, I do think that if you want to beat this team, that you're kind of SOL. Emerson, you play them this week.
yeah.
So yeah, you're kind of SOL. But for later in the season, I would recommend. Well, what you could do too, you could do this too, Emerson. Go back and watch the season 20 matches where Chris had
Sure.
Zoroark, and
See
just
how they
watch how
play
they
with it. Yeah.
see how they play with it. I think that one strategy to increase your like how well you're playing in Pokemon is to take notes during the match. Um, and I this is the matchup to take notes during. You want to be triple checking everything about like, oh, I know that Iron Treads takes this percentage from rocks. And so be watching, don't skip the turns, be watching like when something switches in, like to take the right amount from rock. Yeah, remember that fighting type, so Annihilate and Zoroark, don't take the same amount from rocks.
Hmm.
So remember that, watch for that, get those rocks up. Make sure you're attacking. Don't wait for the match to go for a long time. Make a note of how much health Zoroark has so that next time when it comes out, um, disguised as a different Pokemon, because it can change who it's disguised as throughout the match, right? So next time it comes out, it's something different. You get confused. When you hover your mouse over the thing it's disguised as, it like gets really confused about the move set. So take notes about like which Pokemon are using which moves. Make sure you're using the calculator to be like, was that U-turn? Was that a Flygon U-turn? Was that an Annihilate U-turn, or was that a Arc U-turn? You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, do those kinds of things. I think that's what you need to succeed in this match against Chris, and I think you need to have momentum on turn one if you want any hope of winning.
And for newer coaches, I don't know, or if coaches don't know this, like a lot of times, like if I forget to take notes, you can just control F, like the screen you're playing on, to search through all the text, because like it'll give you that text
Mm.
log in the comment section. And so if you want to see every instance of U-turn, you can just type U-turn and like click down through the chat log of like U-turns that your opponents have done. Um, so one other thing that I noticed as we were talking about this, because I was kind of like, well, what are you going to bring Flygon for? What do you want to bring Jumpluff for? They both have Tailwind, and Jumpluff, I think's an amazing
What the
Tailwind
fuck?
setter. It gets Strength Sap, Tailwind, U-turn. Like,
Oh my god.
Jumpluff MVP.
like why is Jumpluff so good on this team?
It was
Like,
used. It was used a lot in VGC. And when I say a lot, maybe not as much as like Tornadus, but it was used like in the very, very beginnings of VGC for Gen 9 because the Tailwind setters were Pelipper, Talonflame,
yeah.
Murkrow, and Jumpluff. Uh,
Wow,
so pretty cool.
that is
Wow.
wild. Oh my gosh. Well, good team, Chris. Basically had nothing bad to say about it.
Something else is and this is what I actually encourage them to do and I'm kicking myself in the face for it is all of the fighting moves that you want to use against Iron Bundle and Iron Treads. You just switch into one of your ghosts and like that, you just lose that momentum immediately. And so like it's just like the double ghost and then Screamtail also taking like a fourth damage from fighting
Yeah.
is just really excellent. It's going to be really hard to click Rapid Spin against this team. So, those webs are going to potentially stay up for a long time. And Vikavolt, there's almost no reason why you wouldn't run full HP every single week. Bulky thing, it's 43 speed. That thing is actually pretty hard to kill. So it can just come back in and reset them, or really threatens with that. What special attack? 145 special attack, Volt Switches, or Energy Ball, or Bug Buzz. So this is a really awesome team, Chris.
It's amazing. Okay, I found one bad thing to say about it.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay, let's hear
So, okay, below base 90 speed. So your speed tiers are like 136, 111, 110, 110, 106, 190, 90, and then 43 and 15. So I do think you don't have the low speed tiers covered. So something like um, an
it.
Empoleon or a Scizor or a Rotom, there's basically no pressure on those Pokemon to run any speed EVs.
Right.
So you're looking at, max HP, max special attack, or, really kind of opportunities to titrate EVs against this team. So that's a little bit of a weakness, I think.
I love this team.
Yeah, same. It's it
I just keep
just
staring at
it
it.
just looks cool. Like I don't
It
know.
does. You can bring almost every I think like any mon is free game just about any week. Like I feel like every mon kind of works well. Again, I don't super know how Pikachu's gonna do well, but like between the light ball, whatever Pikachu nonsense there is, I'm sure Chris will find something. But um, yeah, I think every mon has a place on this team, which is a really great thing to say about a draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up, we have Liam. of the Ankhepri Scolipedes. So this team is also super interesting. We have Sneasler and Deoxys Speed at the top. Empoleon and Mandibuzz form just a super solid defensive core. I am forgetting I didn't take detailed enough notes about which moves Empoleon kept and lost. I know some of the moves it lost one of Defog, Roost, and Rocks, but I cannot remember. Probably Defog.
I think it
Um,
lost Defog, kept Roost,
Yeah.
kept Rocks, got Knockoff, got Flip Turn.
Gosh, so Empoleon is such a cool defensive mon. And yeah, I think it pairs perfectly with Mandibuzz. It can switch in on any Toxics. Mandibuzz can switch on any Quakes. Yeah, they both get knockoff. They both have pivot. They both have roost. So that's extremely cool. Yeah, and between the two of them, you have knockoff or you have Stealth Rocks and Defog. So that's just really incredible. They are both electric weak. So that's something you will have to watch out for. I think it I mean, you do have at the top, you do have good hazards because at the top you have Deoxys Speed, which is of course known in used to be in Ubers. You'd run like Taunt and then Spikes, Stealth Rocks, Explosion, or something like that. Of course, you can run some attacking moves too. It has a huge move pool. But with that base 180 speed, you basically never have to run speed EVs or only a couple. You can always run, HP or special attack EVs or defense EVs or something. So that's always really neat. Um, I had Sneasler last season and I found it very difficult to use, honestly. I think it's so cool, but it was just felt very counterable by opponents. Like I mean, part of this is my own fault, but I think like 3 times last season I had someone I was like, oh, Sneasler has an amazing matchup, and I sent it out turn 1, and someone had a scarf something that killed it, and on turn 1. So it would be like scarf whatever, scarf Flygon with a coverage move, and I was like, oh, I'll just click U-turn, and it's like, okay, bummer. So anyway, so I would say this team is maybe susceptible to that kind of thing. Same thing with Deoxys. You could wind up with, depending on how you speed EV it, you could wind up with a lot of Scarf things outspeeding it, and with the right coverage move, just dying
Right.
it. And I think that this team, it if one of those top 2 things goes down, then suddenly it looks a lot less threatening. So you still have your great defensive core, but neither of those mons are going to be doing very much damage offensively. So I think that is those are some of my big thoughts. So yeah, I guess my question is, how are you going to be able to keep the battle short enough so that or your piece is alive long enough to make sure that you win? Because I do kind of feel like uh, someone could start snowballing against your team if they get a surprise KO. And then yeah, vice versa. I guess just the way to beat this team, if you can get that kind of surprise KO, then that will really position you well for the rest of the matchup. Yeah, what do you guys think about it?
I really like this team. I think it's, probably the fastest team. I think that's pretty clear between Deoxys Speed and, as you mentioned, like Unburdened Sneasler, which will be fun to see. I really like Torterra, and as you know, I used Torterra last season, but this team is just so much better set up to bring in set up Torterra between like Empoleon and Mandibuzz just being the perfect slow pivots to, especially Empoleon, because Empoleon's probably the best mon to eat ice moves, and then it can just slow flip turn into Torterra. Again, really the only concerning thing is just the dual electric weaknesses and then relying on Torterra to eat those electric attacks, because a lot of times, like, there's a lot of mons that have both electric and then other coverage moves, right? So And Torterra, you don't want eating a ton of hits, especially if you want it to be healthy enough to do like what I assume you're mainly using Torterra for, which is just shell smash, loaded dice, sweep, which Torterra is amazing for. You can run other sets with that, but obviously I really like that set. Yeah, so I think you'll just have to you'll probably have to be more careful than you like, just because mons like Sneasler and Deoxys and even Chandelure sometimes, like I feel like can like they can be hard to maneuver around and not have them take too many hits. One, because I feel like mons like Sneasler and like Adam, again, you probably have more experience with this, but I feel like Sneasler doesn't do great at eating too many hits. And then Chandelure, I feel like can eat hits here and there, but also its speed's not amazing. So sometimes you might feel like you have to scarf it. Trying to think what else, if I have any other thoughts. I actually I like Cyclozar and Indeedee on this team for the normal immunity, for helping bring in mons like Deoxys. Uh, Plenty of Spike, T-Spike, Stealth Rock setters. And yeah, I'd really just focus on establishing as good a turn one as you can each match. Obviously, this is like true for every match that you're doing, but I really think if you take too many hits early on trying to position yourself, it's going to be hard to recover from. But yeah, those are, I think, most of my points on this team. I do really enjoy this team. I think you're going to have fun with it. What about you, Emerson? Do you have any other thoughts?
I think that we might be underestimating size spam. So with Indeedee, Psychic Surge, and Deoxy Speed getting expanding force, it's just a nuke button.
That's a good
If you
point.
don't have a dark type and then you switch in, and then Deoxys actually has a lot of coverage moves as well. So that just might be an engine to get going, Liam, of, getting the Indeedee Psychic Terrain off. Then you're actually protected against things like Sucker Punch with Deoxys Speed, with the Psychic Terrain. And then you can also
Wow.
proc the Unburden with Sneasler, with the Psychic Terrain. So it's pretty cool. You have Mandibuzz that you can switch into the dark moves. And Yeah, I think that that's going to be really fun. Cyclizar also could be like a bulky pivot of like switching into the volt switches. The unfortunate thing about Cyclizar is it doesn't have much offensive pressure, but it's like incredible at utility. So, getting it in, switching it in to take the hits, you can regenerator out, just click U-turn the next turn. I think that could be key to keeping up this both kind of like offensive and defensive pressure. Like games can be won with, if you don't have a way to kill the Mandibuzz, it just keeps clicking roost and you're toxic and then goodbye. Um, so, yeah. Liam,
Yeah,
I just,
Sneasler
yeah.
T-Spike could be cool.
That's true. Yeah, I think unlocking some different sets with Sneasler could be really fun. You can do a air balloon item on Sneasler since you have a lot of ground weaknesses. You switch in, and then they try and hit you with another move to pop your air balloon. Turns out you have double speed now. So lots of fun things you can do with this. We're doing the Anchorage Ninetales next with Brian.
Sweet. Yeah. So I'm really excited to talk about this team, especially after Brian. I don't know if you've seen the match so far for this week. I think he debuted his team this week,
Yeah.
and like he had a hell of a showing. I already love this team. Like I love like a lot of the mons that he drafted. Like Shiyu, I already love Goldfish. As they say. I really, I think it's a good bulky kind of. It's like both bulky, but also a glass cannon, but not super glass, like half glass cannon. I don't know.
At
I like it.
120 base special defense. Like, it's nothing to
Never mind.
shy away from.
Wow.
A
Yeah.
55
But it's only
HP.
55
yeah.
HP, the defense is 80, so on the defensive side, you're pretty vulnerable to like a Mach Punch or something. But,
Yeah.
See the season 19 finals match. That's all I'll say.
It's true. It's true. God, Ogrepon, I'm really excited to see debut more with this team. And I think I had maybe said it a little bit before, but I was kind of unsure what Enamorous was doing because I haven't really seen Enamorous a ton, and Emerson I think had pointed out the contrary ability, which like I had completely missed,
With
and
superpower.
Brian
Yeah,
debuted so well this week. I was like,
absolutely.
oh my god! I'm like, if you don't if you don't pay attention to that in like one or two turns, you could lose the whole match. So I think Enamorous is very good on this team and does have a solid amount of bulk that I'm excited about. Um, I feel like you could pretty successfully run choice lock sets. Like, Brian, I'll have to look at your set again from this week, but choice band, Enamorous, contrary,
Whoa.
like
Mhm.
I think that could be pretty cool. I don't know if it gets any special moves that can. Does anybody know if has any special moves like Leaf Storm or something weird
I
that
don't
could
think
benefit?
so. I think if you ever want to go on the special side, you're almost always running the cute charm. I guess not necessarily. Like you can have like a mixed set of superpower and moonblast. Um, so yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, it
Yeah,
has Moonblast, Mystical Fire, Earth
Earth power,
Power,
which
which
is
is
amazing for the
extremely
steel
cool.
types.
It
Yeah.
has Focus Blast and Grass Knot.
yeah.
Like it's got it even has Sludge Bomb too. It's got like a pretty big move.
Trying to find. Oh no, he didn't share it. I was hoping he shared it set from this week. I don't think he did. But I know War Turtle debuted, and I was trying to remember from the match. I know it was running Rain Dish, and you had a Rain Dance
That
set
was
on it.
so
But I'm
cool.
super excited for some War Turtle meta. Like I really want to see a Shell Smash War Turtle just sweep. So I don't know if he ran Shell Smash this week.
No, but it was like a surprisingly bulky pivot. I think
I would,
Yeah,
maybe he had
yeah.
protect on it, and so it's just like scouting moves, getting a little bit of, almost like leftovers effect with the rain dish because you can't have leftovers with the Eviolite.
yeah.
So I mean, if there was any debut for War Turtle, it was actually this week, Brian. Like I was super impressed by that.
It was great. I think you brought Jolteon this week,
Yeah.
maybe as well. So definitely don't forget that you can run. I think you might have run Volt Absorb on it. Don't forget you can also run like Flame Orb Quick Feet, which would make Jolteon like insanely fast, outspeed almost everything in the meta. Um, I like the defense on this team too. I'm like Slowbro and Clodsire. I think the Oblivious Unaware ability pairing is hilarious, just canonically. Like it really
Uh,
is. But
just
you're gonna
just little
probably want to run
dudes.
Regenerator. There's little dudes goofing around. Um, let's see what else. I think Slowbro, Clodsire have great type synergy. Cobalion can come as both offensive, defensive support. There is not a ton. No, okay. You have Rapid Spin as removal on War Turtle, and then Emerson. I think you pointed out at one point Mousehold
Tidy
has
up.
Tidy Up. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
has Tidy Up. So there is some, not a ton, but there is some. I
It's
don't think it's
just a
like
little bit
none.
faster, or I can't remember if Chinchino is 115 speed.
It is,
Um,
yeah.
so it's like just, I mean, it's pretty similar to Chinchino, except you have the population bomb nuke.
Yeah,
So, but just be careful about Rocky Helmet.
Yeah,
That's
which we did see
it's
this
yeah,
week
just
as well.
the
That
like
was
wall of text of like the
yep.
population bomb and then Rocky Helmet. Oh my goodness.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think I think the offense on this team hits pretty hard. It's like bulky, not super bulky, but has a good amount of bulk. And I think the defense can eat hits, but I don't really think it can eat hits for that long,
Mm.
especially with hazards up, because there's not like a ton of removal options, or there is regenerator on Slowbro, but it's going to be hard for Slowbro to switch out into the offense, I think, at times. So I think you're just going to have to be careful because I think with hazards up, you're going to be pressured to either switch out on Slowbro or click a recovery move on Slowbro and Clodsire. And at that point, you're just letting your opponent keep clicking attack. So I think you're going to have to be careful with that. Um, and that's kind of my main concern is just sometimes I'm like, I think you're gonna have to eat more hits than you want. So
Mm.
my advice is to really play around in the calculator, like, okay, how's this match going to go? How many times can I switch into this attack from my opponent? Do I need to run, some HP EVs on Ogerpon, or do I need to put Assault Vest on something to give myself more wiggle room? Stuff like that. Because I don't want you to have to, like switch in twice and you lost like your core offense, or feel like you're stuck in your defensive core and not able to switch out in your offense without sacking part of your defense. Um, but also, again, you're showing this week was awesome. So I'm really excited to see what you do with this team because you already done a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I would say I mean I echo everything that the two of you said. She is amazing. I think Enamorous, yeah, just has so many things it can do. It's really, I mean, it's such cool typing. It's got such a cool speed tier. Um, it's really great. So I'm excited about that. And I do love that Ogerpon, unlike the mask forms, this one gets to run an item. So yeah, you have the
Yes.
opportunity to do assault vest or choice scarf, or, whatever, leftovers even. So that is extremely cool. I think I do wonder, yeah, similarly to kind of Sean's team, like I wonder if the defense is a little too passive and if it'll let, this is another team where in my, if the offense is not quite bulky enough, like if to like live very much. So if you get something that gets a dragon dance off like a Haxorus, you're looking at um a lot of, your team could be very vulnerable. So just like avoid, letting your opponent set up. And I do think, my advice to people facing this team is I think it'd be really easy to overlook the low tiers. Like we were already talking about
Mm.
War Turtle, but Charge a Bug gets Sticky Web and the Mouse Hold, and I think even Clodsire as you're like prepping with the team, Jolteon and Cobalion could really pop out to you, and you might forget to prep for Clodsire. Um, so I would just say, don't forget about the low tiers because yeah, someone is going to get really smacked by that Shell Smash War Turtle. Um, yeah, otherwise, oh, I do also wish this team had a dragon type,
Mm.
I would say. I feel like that
Yeah.
that's something that could bring some value. It's okay, not it's in some ways like if you're just going to get a 1 point dragon type anyways, it's not really, that's not really making up for it, but it would be nice. So that's one thing to watch out for. I wonder without that dragon type if you have enough like defensive resistances to different things. So yeah, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the team. Yeah, overall, yeah, fun team. Yeah, and like everyone said, kind of great first showing. Really cool, Enamorous set, and really interesting like Thunder Rain team with Jolteon. Yeah, really looking forward to what you have
Oh
to.
yeah, I forgot about the thunder. I love the
Yeah.
animation for thunder. It's just like kapow.
Kaboom! It
Yeah.
really, it feels like whoa, that was big. That was a big impact.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find what tier, like if you were to put a dragon type on this team, where would you put it? Like part of me is
That's
thinking maybe
tough.
Cobalion,
Yeah, that's what I would think as well. What even is available?
because that's what I'm
It's
trying to
tough
find
to
right
give
now.
up the steel type, but I think it might be okay.
Goodra's on the board. In the same
Oh,
tier as Cobalion.
that would
Hmm.
be interesting.
It would be.
I like
Yeah,
Cobalion's like pivot potential, but it does share like I don't know, the ground type weakness, sharing that with Clodsire. I don't
Yeah, I think
know.
that's
and
tough.
Chiyu. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't really eat fire hits that like I don't. There's just some like defense. I think Adam just has a good point where like a dragon type would help so much with the type synergy between your
Right.
offense and defense because I feel like Cobalion's supposed to be that middle point. Anyways, what you would be giving up is a rocker and a volt switch mon, but Gudra is Gudra. So
Yeah, and I'm looking at the speed tiers too of like, you can give up that 108 speed tier since you have
Mhm.
the Enamorous at 106, although sometimes it's just nice to have that one thing that's a little bit faster than one of your sweepers or cleaners. But you have a lot of, 3 more things that would be faster than an Amorous. Um, so yeah, and don't underestimate Clodsire. I don't remember, was it you, Ben, where I was playing against you and like Clodsire just like ate like a psychic type attack and you're like, whoa, this is bulky as fuck.
It might have been.
So, that's Clodsire is another defensive win con. Of you can toxic things. Not a lot of things get toxic still. Like with the new DLC, things like Mandibuzz got it. But don't underestimate Clodsire coming in, eating a hit, and clicking toxic, and then you just have so many Pokemon that are um, getting chipped. I won a game in a Nat Dex with Clodsire with Toxic, and the person ended up forfeiting. They're like, I can't win. Like Toxic just kills my whole team. So that was pretty fun.
Amazing. Amazing. Great. Well, good luck this season, Brian. Yeah, we're so glad that you returned to the Porch League. First season back in several years. So thank you for coming back and joining us. And yeah, we're excited to see what you have to do with this team.
Definitely.
I think next up is the Baltimore Braviaries, another returning coach. We are all so thrilled that you're back, Colin. We really are glad to see you. You are gonna make the league a little brighter this season.
For sure.
Yeah, so just to get into your team, you have Chien Pao, Slowking, Sandy Shocks, Mian Shao, top. Really, really nice, kind of bulky offense. I love the Sandy Shocks and Mian Shao kind of bulk, and Chien Pao is shockingly bulky actually too. What you
Yeah.
normally think about it.
It gets recover, y'all.
I
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah, you could run like taunt, recover, and then it gets like ruination.
Yep.
You can run kind of bulky defense sets. Yeah, and I'm loving kind of the pivot options with Sandy Shocks and Mian Shao King as well. I think those are cool. So you get that, generator kind of cool. I do think you, Colin, drafted a more like your points are a little more balanced throughout the tiers compared to other teams drafted like really top heavy teams. So to be honest, this is what I wish that this was like always what people drafted. This is what I love about Draft League is using mods like Typhlosion, Registeel, and Wyvern. Um, and I kind of feel like since the beginning of Gen 8, it has not really been the meta to balance out your points really smoothly. And so I'm a little nervous, just sort of like abstractly for your team, that it's like, oh, you're gonna feel like you don't have the firepower every week or you don't have the deep, kind of stalwart stops to really do what you want to do. So I hope you don't feel that way. I'm a little bit nervous that you might, but actually what I would love is for you to prove that this meta is back, is spreading out your points kind of thinly or evenly. A few other things. I think that based on this team, you're going to be really hard pressed to bring removal. So of course you have Noivern, Defog, and I hope it didn't lose Defog.
No, it still
And
kept it.
okay, good. And you have Zarina with Rapid Spin, but those are kind of just in the lineup here. It's like your 5th and 7th on by points, and especially with the way I think that those are solidly in the middle. You have kind of your top 4, and then you have the next 4 or 5 with Noivern, Registeel, Sarina, Typhlosion, Weezing. Then I think Wigglytuff is bottom. But between those 5 that are kind of in the middle, I expect that you'll only be bringing 2 of those each week, and because you've kind of spread the points evenly around, I just think you're gonna be hard pressed to like. You might wind up in situations where you're like, I really want but Sarina or Noivern don't really belong on my team this week. So you're gonna have to make a sacrifice one way. And I think that puts some pressure on Jian Pao. So I'm a little bit just noticing that about your team. I'll also say I drafted Jian Pao once. I thought it was really cool, except that I kept it in the back like all of my matches, and it was kind of boring because I really wanted to use it. Never let it. I was like, oh, I better not. I better avoid getting chip on this, and then either sometimes I would either win without it even showing up, or sometimes someone would just like set up and then Chien Pao would die. So I would just encourage you to get Chien Pao on the field as often as possible. Use those pivots in your regen core to really support Chien Pao. Keep it on the field. Yeah, I guess my question, I think you'll be able to outlast other teams with your regen mons, but are you going to be able to do enough damage, with everything not named Chien Pao to make the, kind of close the loop and seal the deal on your matches? I think how to keep rocks off the field, question for. And then I think my advice for people who facing this team is to keep your designated Chien Pao check healthy. It can be easy to be like, oh, I'll just kind of switch this in. It's a great check for other things too, but remember to keep that in the back, and that will help keep Chien Pao away off the field. And yeah, just figure out your plan for breaking the regen. Yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts on the team. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so echo a lot of what Adam said. I too drafted Chin Pao and I put it in the bag for almost the entire season. So Colin, take from that what you will. I think if anybody would unlock Chin Pao, it's gonna be Colin.
For sure.
I know I think I told you too. I was texting Ian during the draft, and Ian was worried about Latios getting sniped, and was like, "Oh, what's Colin gonna take or whatever?" And I was like, "If I know Colin, he's taking Chin Pao because it looks like a Colin
Surprise.
You know what I mean? And of course he drafted it, so I'm really excited for him to use it. I think it fits a lot of the play style that he usually uses. So I think he'll unlock Chin Pao, and same with Noivern. I think we may have discussed this at one point, but like for some reason, Noivern feels like a Colin mon. I don't know if he's drafted it before, but
Those
excited for
Dracos
that.
hurt. Like,
They do.
and it's Noivern is actually, somewhat good defensively as well. Just that defensive typing can switch in on the fighting types or the fighting moves for Chien Pao, and then just U-turn out. So.
Oh yeah, and it's got infiltrator, so
Right.
careful setting up sub or thinking that you can run sub against this team. Um, defense wise, I really think Slowking is probably. I mean, it is the best mon that you could have paired with Chen Pao. There's two mons in the whole game that get chilly reception.
Yeah,
The slow pivot and set up
Slow
snowscape.
King, Glow King.
Yup, and you already got Wheezing, so you kind of have Glow King too.
Oh, for sure, Glow King at home.
Yep, Glow King. We have Glow King at home. Registeel's okay. I'm not sure it'll be great every week, but I definitely think you'll have weeks where it really, fills that gap that you need. That's kind of like what I feel about this whole team though, is I feel like you can literally bring every mon. Like there's gonna be weeks
Exactly.
that every Pokemon in this draft makes sense. So I don't think you're gonna struggle to bring your quote unquote low tiers, really. I think you have good hazard setters and Registeel, Weezing, Sandy Shocks, and again, kind of like middling removal, as we've talked about. I really think, and again, when I first looked at this team, I wasn't really sure how to use this team, or I was skeptical of like how it was going to work together. But the more I looked at this team, the more I liked it, and I really think the ticket to this team doing well is the bulk between Slowking and Min Chao to aid in the positioning of the team. So you have an amazing slow pivot and Slowking, as we've already said. And Mean Shao Regenerator, like you could run Assault Vest on Min Shao every week, and I honestly think that'd be fine. Obviously, you might not want to do that. There are probably weeks where that's not optimal, but having a bulky core that you can position the rest of your team with, I think is going to be the key to unlocking this team. Yeah, it'll give your hazard setters, your other defense, your support and offense like room to breathe. And so yeah, I think that's my 2 cents if I have any thoughts on this team. And I just also think you're gonna have a ton of fun with Typhlosion. I'm thinking like Typhlosion eruption stuff. It seems like
Yeah.
Colin's game.
Serena's better this time around. It got back triple axle.
Oh, nice.
So that's just really nice for it to it has what's his attack stat? 120? Like what? Those power whips and those triple axles are gonna hurt. I think you make a really good point, both of you, about Chimpao of like not necessarily leaving it in the back the whole time. Like just bring it in, and like you can scare something out, take advantage of that. Go for a double switch. Yeah, I also think Sandy Shocks having spikes is really fun to really just chip things down. Like if you chip things down enough, your Chimpao comes in and it gets a kill every single time. So that's really neat. Wheezing like carried my team last season. It's an extremely good low tier
It
pick.
is.
I think I used like Thunderbolt against a Pelipper and killed it because I crept it to be just like one faster than zero speed Pelly. It can do pain split shenanigans. Yeah, and even sometimes I think using Mianchao as a breaker, like choice band Mianchao is no joke. Really kind of decide, Colin, what's going to be your roles each week, and really shake up your opponent by potentially bringing something they might not expect.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Yeah, again, we're so glad to have you back. It's really a
Yay!
pleasure and enjoy. And yeah, drafted a really fun team. Can't wait to see how you use it.
I think we're good to hop into the Cobalions, which again, another returning coach, Ryan. Welcome back. Good to have you. Ryan, you came back with vengeance, with the same kind of draft that you always do, but you keep getting better at drafting it. The offense here is just immensely oppressive. And you draft offense just about better than anybody. You figure out like the way to make the most hyper offense team possible. And like Iron Valiant, Garchomp, Greninja, King Gambit, they all hit hard and most have amazing setup options. And I feel like that was my, I feel like that's an encompassing thought on the offense is really like you just click moves and the
For
opponent
sure.
dies. And then the defense is there is no defense. The team keeps clicking attacks. That is, I mean, there's kind of some defense. Maybe like I think Rotom Frost works really good here, especially with, I think it's the perfect pick to help Garchomp get in because if I was to think of a mon that's probably the hardest to get in, it's probably Garchomp or at least trying to, cover for random ice coverage options your opponent has. So I think Rotom Frost is a good bring here. Good hazard setters and okay removal. I'm trying to remember. Is Defog? Well, no. I don't think
No, the
Just
removal's not great. I think it's just
Colossal and
Bramble
Bramblegast. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And does Squawkabilly get defogged or
No.
Oh
Our
my
little
gosh.
our Billy boy. It's okay.
So, some final thoughts on this team. I'm just like, so the team is so offensive that I would really hesitate to build anything that is not doing some damage or attacking. I think you're really going to have to be okay taking hits from your opponent, damage from hazards, because I feel like most matches it's going to be optimal for you to click attacks or set up options. I think your team has one goal. It's to be as offensive as possible, as immediately as possible. And I don't see matches going past 20 turns. And if it does go past like 20 turns, it's probably doesn't mean good for you. You really want to just keep your offense as nonstop going and oppressive as possible, so your opponent doesn't have room to breathe. Because if they do have room to breathe, I don't know that you have the bulk to keep going. But I think that's part of what makes this team so fun is it's offensively explosive, which I'm really excited to see. So I'm excited to see you unlock this team, Ryan.
Yeah, explosive is like a great word to describe this team. I feel like I'm trying to remember, has anyone really used Iron Valiant that well in our league? I mean, was it
I
Nick who had it last? Nick used it pretty
Nick
well.
used it pretty well. I
I feel
had
like
I
it.
used it.
I had it. It's just like I wish that I could find like opportunities to just set up exactly one Calm Mind. And so I
Yeah.
think that Ryan can identify those opportunities really well. So it's Iron Valiant is such an important piece to this team, and it enables your sweepers like King Gambit, like a Scale Shot, Garchomp. You can just Iron Valiant can fill so many roles. It can be like an annoying Encore user. You can do Destiny Bond stuff. So, also one thing to point out is Greninja got Sludge Wave.
Oh,
What?
what?
So
Oh my
you
God.
don't have to run your Gunk Shot mix set to hit these fairies anymore.
Wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's nuts. I don't like that. I was thinking about Greninja though as a pretty pivotal part of this team with the spike support, getting the
Yes.
fast spike support. It's kind of I don't think it gets like explosion or anything like that, but it could be kind of a suicide lead,
Right.
potentially, I think about just like Spike's offense, that can be just like extremely threatening. Like how many of the mons that can survive, a King Gambit Sucker Punch when it's boosted with Supreme Overlord? Like after spikes, can they still survive it? Maybe
Yeah.
Sure.
or probably not. And Garchomp has the rocks option and it does have the option to run it defensive, like Rough Skin, Rocky Helmet. So you could easily imagine like this team racking up chip against teams that have like lots of pivot options. So
Hmm.
just wanted to highlight that a little bit. Another thing I wanted to highlight is that Mesprit got an enormous buff this season. It has a new move that I think also a Zelf and Pixie get called Mystical Power. It's 70 base power psychic move, but it has a 100% chance to raise your special attack. So that is
Right.
really cool. You can just come in with a Scar, with a Specs, or I think a Metronome could be kind of fun for that move. And you just
Mm.
like keep clicking it like over and over and over. And Mesprit is like pretty bulky. So you run like a bulky set and just like go to town. So I think that is just worth noting on this team. We've already seen Ryan do at least one match where he used Muck really well, so I don't think Ryan is going to have trouble getting the low tiers in. But I am a little concerned about the options. I think the getting chipped down and dying in one hit works both ways. Like I think Iron Valiant doesn't have as much bulk as like usually, which is why Emerson, you were saying it's like hard to find a turn to click Calm Mind.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think, you're gonna have to be playing against hazards a lot, and you don't have as many pivot options as, I mean, you definitely have some, but not as many as some of the other teams that we've looked at today. So I would be curious, how you're gonna play against hazards. Um,
It's
oh, go ahead.
No, I was like, I brought up because I remember too. I was like, Ryan's already had his first match or whatever, and it was 21 turns. So I'm like, good job keeping it short.
There you go. Exactly. Um, Yeah, I think I think one thing if you're gonna face this team, you should really be careful against Ryan, someone who be very careful about his EVs. and expect that, a lot of these fast things like Iron Man and Greninja are running really bulky sets. King Gambit is running bulky sets. Garchomp is running bulky sets. So I think that the offense, could wind up, double check as you're doing your calculator, could wind up in a situation where like, oh, I didn't think King Gambit was going to live that Mach
Right.
Punch. Now I'm screwed. So, I would just be careful about things like that. Yeah, and again, just wanted to point out is amazing as always. I was just remembering back to your first draft in our league, let you pick up Tapu Koko and Mega Latios
Oh,
on the
Yeah.
same team. So that was, you always, you're always just kind of drafting these really great things and finding some great synergies that were available to everyone else, but you saw and you were able to. So really, admire that about your abilities here.
Yeah, and I really think too, this is the kind of team, Ryan, where I think you're going to have weeks that just like waves of your offense, like throwing out waves of offense is going to work. Like maybe it makes sense to throw out Iron Valiant and just keep clicking attacks
mhm.
until like you
It
sack
dies.
something and just
Yeah.
give your opponent no room to breathe, and then switch in your next wave and keep doing that. And eventually all that's left King Gambit, and what are you going to do?
Mhm.
Um, like it's terrifying that that strategy works on this team. Which is again what makes it so fun.
Yeah, I think Ryan's very skilled at drafting because if you look at Iron Valiant and its speed tier, it wants to be able to run the, modest sets, the adamant sets. And because you have Greninja, that's actually possible sometimes. Because you have that thing that's faster. So Greninja can be the thing that revenges instead of Iron Valiant. And to have something like Greninja that's actually has amazing offensive pressure. Like when I drafted Iron Valiant, I think the only thing that was faster than it was like Cyclizar, which is fine, but it just doesn't have the offensive power as Greninja does. So I think that was really smart drafting from Ryan.
Well, I think that concludes our Violet draft analysis. Do any of you have any, or either of you have any closing thoughts about the meta or how the season's going to go, or something you hope to see, or anything like that?
I am really excited about not having Terra. And I know we probably covered that in the intro, but I was talking a little bit deeper with Kyle the other day about how Terra sometimes rewards not as much skill. So like when you don't have Terra, you have to have more skill in like, navigating things around. When you have Terra,
Yeah.
there's that surprise element that sometimes takes away the competitiveness of the game. And so, I think that this is really going to be a season where we all have to use our heads a bit more and really try and control the immense offensive pressure even without Terra. So I think we're gonna be seeing a lot of big brain plays this season.
Sure. No, I think everybody should be proud of how well they drafted. Like I know we talked about like we gave praise in areas that we liked about each team. We talked about concerns, but overall, I really think this is up there in my favorite drafts that we've done as a league. Um, so I think everybody should like I don't think any match is a guarantee really this season. And just go out there and have fun because I feel like that's honestly when we play our best, anyways. And all of these drafts are so much fun that I think that'll be easy. So excited
Great
for
point.
the season to get rolling.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for your time. And yeah, I don't have any real closing thoughts except excited for the season.
One thing I don't know if we mentioned this in the intro, so apologies if we do, but Adam, you mentioned a strategy of team preview where
Uh-huh.
when you get into your game and you have team preview, you see what your opponent brought, and then you compare it to your, preparation document or just looking at their entire team. What did they bring and what didn't they bring? I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah, I think, yeah, for me, I always look at what people did not bring because then, what it lets me do is say like, oh, I was really nervous about this Pokemon. My whole game plan was based on like, okay, I'll just talk like against Nick J. I just played my first match earlier this, and I was like, oh man, I'm actually forgetting what is on Nick's team, but there was a Pokemon where I was like, oh man, it looks so good against my team. It was Whiscash. I was like, Whiscash looks so good against my team. It's just like some weird low tier. How? And I was like, and Corviknight, I'm not worried about Corviknight, but I am worried about Whiscash.
Oh
So what do
my
I do with?
god.
That's so
And
funny.
and then I was like, so I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And then on Team Preview, I was like, oh great, no Whiscash. Well, that means that my Raikou isn't stopped. So I
Right.
had been planning to hold it in the back because I was expecting Whiscash to stop me. But then I was like, no, I need to like lead this thing. I need to, um, get it out there and, make sure I'm really pressuring Nick. So not that it led to a win, but, that's the kind of thing, really adjusting your game plan on Team Preview to account what was not brought, or, oh, I have this additional sack. The whole point of this Pokemon was to check this other Pokemon, but they didn't bring it. So
Right.
now if I need a sack, that's my sack.
That's a good point. And that jogged my memory too. I'm like, yeah, especially for like newer coaches, or if you're returning and haven't played in a while, just a reminder how important running through matchups in like a calculator is. Like that's such a huge thing, like a huge part of practice. I feel like is just realizing how much your opponent's actually doing against you. Like maybe you think you don't have like a good offensive matchup until you hop in a calculator, and then you see, oh wait, with one Dragon Dance, I sweep almost the entire team, especially after
Right.
rocks or something like that. And the other thing too that I think I either towards the end of last season or midway through last season I was reminded of is just don't try and outdo if what your opponent does well if they already do it better than you. You know what I mean? Like say if you have a team matchup and say for instance we just talked about like Ryan's team, like the Cobalions. You're not gonna out hyper offense like like Ryan's hyper offense. You might out bulky offense, but don't try and like outdo what another team's doing as like a way of winning. I would try and like come at them with your own strengths and like apply your own strengths to their weaknesses instead of trying to like outdo what they already do. Or like you're not gonna out stall a Blissey, Not that we drafted Blissey. I think we draft Blissey?
I don't
I
think
don't know if we
so.
did.
I just
I
remember
think we
last
stopped
season.
drafting Blissey.
I remember last season Chris had like so many fairy weaknesses, and they were like, I have a Blissey. Like it doesn't matter. Like Blissey is my fairy switch in. I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's such good advice, though, Ben, of just like play to your strengths. That's a
Yeah.
good life advice too. It's like,
Sure.
do what can you do that no one else can, but for your team. So
100%. Yeah.
Porch life lessons.
cool. Well, enjoy the season, everyone. Thanks for watching and podcasting with us.
All right. Peace out.
See ya.